Introduction to the AI Sim section of the Special Crime Working Group. Come and read more of my works on the website of EP1-10. Preface. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In 2300, a global outbreak of various mixed viruses occurred worldwide. In the following 50 years, apart from economic depression, scenes often seen in zombie movies such as incomplete buildings, empty streets, strange people, and widespread smashing, looting, beating, and even killing were common. The number of mentally ill patients exceeded 60% of the total population. The end of the world has arrived, with a severe shortage of labor, leading to the stagnation of social infrastructure and supporting service industries. On the other hand, the treatment and life of patients with mental disorders are imbalanced, family and social relationships are lacking, and love is gradually disappearing. In order to solve various social problems, Mingfei AI simulator technology company has emerged. The company's purpose is to provide every customer with any one or a few relationships such as family, lover, friend, colleague, etc. By embedding a special chip, wearing AI earphones, glasses, or portable projectors, they can easily obtain AI simulator employees or partners, and improve the quality of work and life. However, the problems of the original society and family have been alleviated, and AI simulators have taken on a large number of basic positions, filling some people's spiritual gaps. However, the proportion of cases involving patients with mental disorders remains high, and the criminal methods are also more abnormal and bizarre. The Subai's Psychological Clinic, also known as the two-pillar enterprises of B City along with Mingfei Company, has branches in more than 10 cities around the world. In addition to the regular outpatient department, inpatient department, and severe mental disorder withdrawal center in cooperation with welfare institutions, it has also established special crime working groups with local police stations, specifically responsible for investigating crimes related to patients with mental disorders. Kim 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The sixth floor of the Subai Family Psychological Clinic is brightly lit, and this is the office of the Special Crime Working Group. The person in charge, Subai, is repeatedly looking at the information of case number 235300817. The uniqueness of this case lies in the fact that the victim Su Tingting's AI intermediate companion-type simulated human husband Kim 003 reported to the police immediately and recorded the entire incident with AI glasses. In all previous criminal cases, it is not surprising that the victim with an AI simulated human partner voluntarily reported to the police for the first time. AI glasses and earphones are commonly used devices for companion-type simulated humans. Customers use pre-embedded chips to feedback brain signals to the back-end system. Mingfei has a team dedicated to analyzing customer emotional reactions, which may add different filters and environmental backgrounds. Therefore, in the eyes of different people, the world may be more colorful, illusory images may appear in certain scenes, or distorted individuals or objects may be seen, similar to the effects seen in 3D glasses that better match the viewer's emotional cognitive feedback. Su Tingting suffers from dissociative identity disorder, also known as multiple personalities. She spends most of her time living in a hypothetical world, and distinguishing between illusions and reality is exactly where Su Bai's job lies. At 22.25, amidst the starry night sky, a white Golf drove out of the parking lot in the suburban New World Ming Park, followed the entrance and turned left into a small road. This is a must-pass place for Su Tingting to commute between her company and home every day. On the left side of the road is a dilapidated urban village, and on the right side, there is an additional corridor between the farmland and the road for pedestrians to pass through. The street lights are very dim, and there is not a single light in the entire picture except for the headlights. Golf stopped at an intersection when a strong light suddenly shone from behind. Su Tingting looked in the rearview mirror and at some point, a black SUV appeared. Looking in the backlight, a man in his 40s was sitting in the driver's seat, with broad shoulders and a dark blue short-sleeved vest on top, wearing a baseball cap. I can't see the SUV driver's facial features clearly, but I can feel him smiling. Usually, when people smile, their chin is closed, which is a subconscious gesture of friendliness. At this moment, the man's chin is clearly lifted forward, and he is provoking. This is not an ordinary criminal. Suddenly, the sound of a flute could be heard in the picture, and Su Tingting hurriedly dodged several night buses. As she approached the next intersection, she looked in the rearview mirror again, and the SUV seemed to be closer. "Wife, what's wrong with you?" Kim 003's voice didn't sound like synthetic computer sound at all. Su Bai even felt a bit familiar, as if she had known someone before. Su Tingting didn't answer. Her movements looked calm, without panic or hesitation. She stepped on the gas pedal and rushed over the intersection at the moment the red light was on. At this point, the SUV's lights disappeared from the screen, and the Golf was speeding at 80 miles on a road with only 10 meters of visibility. Su Tingting got off the main road from exit 13, and the navigation indicated that she arrived at her destination 1 kilometer later. Out of thin air, a special number 15 bus appeared in sight, and it was vaguely visible that most of the seats were empty, while in the last row, a little boy was lying on the back of a chair looking back. He blinked a pair of dark big eyes, full of curiosity. Just as Su Tingting was about to respond with a smile, a black mist appeared in the carriage, seeming to devour everyone, but quickly dissipated without a trace. Meanwhile, the little boy's eyes also fogged up, turning completely black. His mouth cracked open to her cheeks, and he closed and said to Su Tingting, "Die." The screen began to shake, and Kim 003's voice came again. "Wife. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" Then, the sound of calling the police rang, "Come and save my wife, there's an accident, come and save her." The authenticity of this alarm call made Su Bai start to suspect that Kim 003 has emotions. At this moment, Su Tingting seemed to be attracted by something. She raised her hand and turned off the navigation, ignoring Kim 003's call. She followed the bus for 2 to 3 minutes and was hit by a speeding black SUV on the riverbank near exit 15. The river suddenly poured in, and Su Tingting crawled to the back seat in panic like she had just woken up from a dream, desperately pressing a certain phone number over and over again, but her phone screen was black. Time seemed to have stopped, and the headlights illuminated the entire scene like daylight. Looking out from the rear windshield, the SUV driver stood not far away. His eyebrows were short and thick, his eyes were fierce and contemptuous, his lips were thick, and there was a thumb-long scar on his cheek. On the side of his neck, there was a palm-sized pentagram tattoo. In the final moments of Su Tingting's life, the scene was distorted by AI glasses and headphones getting wet, and Kim 003's voice continued to come intermittently, "Wife, don't sleep, wife, you broke the car window with the hammer under the window, wife, hold on a bit, wife, I love you." Su Bai heard more and more desperate cries, turned off the video, and still felt an emotion lingering in her heart. As the chief psychologist of the Su Bai family, she was rarely affected by the case. Case number 23530-817 has been like this for more than 10 days, and the SUV driver has been unable to find this person. He was indeed processed by Su Tingting's brain. Captain Cold Noodle Cheng. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just as dawn broke, Su Bai was awakened by a phone call. As she walked downstairs, she saw Captain Cheng and Officer Xiao Pan on the SUV at the entrance of the community. "Aren't you all sleeping?" Officer Xiao Pan looked at Su Bai's meticulous suit and slightly rough hair, as if he had finally felt the smoke and fire on her. Meanwhile, the police station's operation team leader, Cheng, was now attracted by the community environment. The new Three Villages relocation community is an old and dilapidated community, even in the post-apocalyptic era of economic recession. It is unique in that there is only one building, no elevator, no entrance, and a dog hole on the wall of the community. Cheng Zichio's clear and handsome face appeared puzzled. Even if there were a gathering of 100 criminals in this ghost place, no one would probably notice. Su Bai was adopted by the most famous man in B City since childhood and named a global psychological clinic after her. Even if she lost a hair, the Su Bai building would shake 3 times. How could she live here? Just arrived at 9 o'clock, and the rumor that Dr. Su and Captain Cheng came to work together this morning is already well known. Su Bai has always been the rumored female lead of the Su Bai family, and Captain Cheng, who has never been sarcastic and handsome, is one of the rumored male leads of the big boss Xing Qinglan. Together, these two people are somewhat intriguing. In the meeting room of the Special Crime Working Group, the two protagonists were staring at the projector on the table without blinking, and a melancholic and handsome man appeared there. Kim 003. Su Bai looked at the unfamiliar and familiar face in front of her, feeling a bit dazed for a moment. I have copied all the ID cloud storage of Kim 003, and the original AI glasses and headphones have been damaged. This projector was specially customized by Su Tingting for use at home. Cheng Ziqiu thought that Su Bai's hesitation was because she had never seen a companion-type simulator also use a projector. Kim 003, are you okay? Su Bai didn't pay attention to what Cheng Ziqiu said. She looked at Kim 003's lifeless eyes, hoping to see more from them. I'm fine, Kim 003 lifted his head and showed a standard smile. I'm sorry about Su Tingting. Su Bai stared at Kim 003 without blinking, feeling something different. Thank you. Kim 003's tone remains unchanged. Su Bai's eyes dimmed as she turned to Cheng Ziqiu and asked, you just mentioned copying. There should be storage, right? Cheng Ziqiu gestured to Officer Pan to retrieve the stored video content, which was recorded by Kim 003 as footage of his and Su Tingting's daily lives. Su Bai immediately entered work mode and after roughly reviewing several videos, she found that Su Tingting's living environment looks very comfortable. The Qinglan garden where she lives is a high-end community, and the decoration of her home is also carefully designed. Except for Kim 003, Su Tingting has no other social connections, and almost everything she says from waking up to sleeping is with Kim 003. In addition to sweet words, they also talk about daily trivia. It must be said that Kim 003 is a very qualified AI simulation husband, and Su Tingting relies heavily on him. Whether at home or in the company, Kim 003's voice appears in almost all situations. In addition, Su Tingting works in a small media studio. She goes there about 2 or 3 times a week, mainly responsible for editing and producing media content. She also has zero communication with colleagues at work, and communication is done through office software. This kind of living state actually represents the end of the world for everyone, without family or social interaction, only accompanied by customized AI simulation people. Life is monotonous and repetitive. Which hospital diagnosed Su Tingting's dissociative identity disorder? Su Bai stood up and first looked at Kim 003, where he floated without any expression. Su Bai. Cheng Ziqiu was clearly waiting for the question as he stood up from the nearby sofa and leaned against the conference table. Su Bai was not surprised either. She entered the Su Bai case system on her computer and found that Su Tingting did indeed seek medical attention 3 years ago due to dissociative identity disorder and bipolar disorder. Strangely, after being hospitalized for a month, Su Tingting was discharged from the hospital without any follow-up visits. Dr. Su had an impression of Su Tingting before, right? Cheng Ziqiu's voice had an imperceptible coldness. I am not usually responsible for outpatient and inpatient care. I only saw Su Tingting's name in the documents sent by the police station. Su Bai finished speaking and looked at the medical records. She found that besides the routine information registered at outpatient and admission, the treatment process and medication records were too simple to meet the Su Bai case record standards. Cheng Ziqiu raised her eyebrows and continued, 3 years ago, Dr. Su just arrived in B City, right? Su Bai responded lightly, thinking to herself, this is not right, everything is not right. Su Tingting's attending doctor and other medical staff are still here, right? Cheng Ziqiu looked at Su Bai. Let me ask. Su Bai moved her chair a bit and called Director Lu from the medical records office, asking her to verify all of Su Tingting's cases and provide a list of doctors and nurses. After Cheng Ziqiu signaled to Officer Pan to follow and help, they were the only two left in the conference room. Kim 003 had already disappeared due to not taking action for a certain period of time. Why do you live in such a community? The sudden shift in topic caught Su Bai off guard. How should I explain to Cheng Ziqiu? Su Bai's brain quickly rotated 300 times, likes quietness. Do you like a sense of dilapidation? Have social anxiety disorder? Personal preference? Su Bai stabilized her emotions and said expressionlessly. Does Dr. Su have any misunderstandings about me? Cheng Ziqiu leaned over and said with a smile, I feel unfriendly to him. Of course, Su Bai wouldn't say, I won't be friendly to anyone, just forced out a smile. Cheng Ziqiu did not continue to inquire, but instead went to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to watch Su Bai with great interest. Does every sim like Mingfei store their daily life? Su Bai urgently raised a question. The video capacity recorded by Kim 003 is definitely not something that ordinary cloud storage can store. With Mingfei's market share, it is impossible to meet the needs of all customers. No, Cheng Ziqiu clearly asked this question and obtained the answer. Dr. Lu from Mingfei Company and I talked over the phone. Since all the images are stored on cloud servers, there are no customers who have specially applied to increase space capacity. For daily and simulated human communication content, it will be covered after 72 hours. Is reporting to the police and providing a video of the incident the standard emergency procedure for AI simulated humans? Su Bai knew, but definitely not. Moreover, every time I watch Su Tingting's crime video, she is moved by the last sentence from Kim 003, I love you. After receiving signals of damage to some devices in Kim 003 in the system backend, Ming Fei's team discovered that he had called the police. They immediately contacted the police station and held an emergency public relations meeting to promote the emotional expression of AI simulation people when encountering danger, in order to gain the recognition of old and potential customers. What about the daily video materials I just saw? Su Bai was somewhat disappointed, and she was more willing to believe that it was Kim 003's true emotional expression. It should have been saved by Su Tingting before her death. She paid to increase cloud storage space 6 months ago. After an awkward silence, Su Bai stood up and gave Cheng Ziqiu a can't talk anymore look. She pushed the door open and walked out of the conference room, making a thoughtful excuse. I'll go to the medical record office to take a look. Cheng Ziqiu stared at Su Bai's back, shook her head gently, and murmured in a dreamy voice, Su Bai. Genius Dr. Jean Lingshan. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Director Lu is an old employee of the Su Bai family. A few years ago, he worked as an assistant to the big boss Xing Qinglan. Now, he still holds a superior position in the clinic in B City. Su Bai walked to the entrance of the medical record office and heard Director Lu's extremely gentle and respectful voice. Of course, if it weren't for Mr. Su's orders, I wouldn't have dared to let outsiders check any patient's case. It's a patient named Su Tingting who has indeed been treated at the clinic. Captain Cheng from the police station is here. Okay, I'll follow Mr. Su's arrangement. Mr. Xing, Mr. Su is here. With Captain Cheng. The tone of this sentence immediately wafted out a pink bubble. Su Bai turned around and realized that Cheng Ziqiu was standing not far away with a smile, also listening. Okay, Director Lu walked up to Cheng Ziqiu with the phone in his hands and bowed slightly, saying, Captain Cheng, Mr. Xing, please answer the phone. Su Bai looked over helplessly and realized that the old man really liked the gossip of being a cold-faced detective. Cheng Ziqiu took the phone and walked aside, seemingly happily chatting with the other person. Cough. Su Bai stood still and walked into the medical record office. In rows of filing cabinets, she found cases of dissociative identity disorder, from 2350 to 2351. This is a serious mental illness that is difficult to cure. Most patients require lifelong treatment after onset, and there are almost no cases that can restore normal life. Those who are discharged within a year are even more unlikely. Quickly, Su Bai found Su Tingting's case. As soon as she received the file bag, inexplicable palpitations struck again. How could a case of dissociative identity disorder only have a few thin pages? Mr. Su, Director Lu leaned over and lowered his voice, saying, "I just called Mr. Xing for advice because the attending doctor is Dr. Jean." Dr. Jean Lingshan was once a prominent figure in the Su Bai family. He was renowned for his research on dissociative identity disorder at a young age, and his unique hypnotherapy made Su Bai famous for a while. However, the field of deep hypnosis is something that many psychologists dare not touch. Not long after, one patient committed suicide, and a few days later, another appeared. A month later, 5 patients from Lingshan committed suicide, and the once admired genius doctor fell to the bottom. Jean Lingshan failed, and his hypnotherapy was also widely questioned. That year, Su Bai had just been transferred to B City, and she vaguely knew that Qinglan personally handled the follow-up matters. The reputation of the Su Bai family was not greatly affected, but Jean Lingshan never appeared again. Su Bai and Jean Lingshan hardly know each other, but they seem to be very familiar. They have a connection that others don't know. It's Big Orange. When everyone was cursing Jean Lingshan, Su Bai met the stray cat, Big Orange, he was taking care of. That arrogant and bad-tempered orange cat is not a relative, and Su Bai tried her best not to gain its trust. And this orange-white cat, with every strand of hair clean, looked like it was snuggling up next to Jinling Mountain. Su Bai didn't believe that the thin, weak, and melancholic Dr. Jean was the one among all the people who pursued fame and fortune without caring about the lives of patients. Dr. Su. Cheng Ziqiu walked in, interrupting Su Bai's memories. He handed his phone to Director Lu and asked, "Mr. Xing said that the attending doctor had left long ago. What about the other medical staff who have been in contact with this case?" Su Bai did not answer and looked at the case in her hand. The attending doctor who appeared in the outpatient records and inpatient cases was Jean Lingshan, and among the nursing staff, only Wei Xiaoqing's name appeared. "Is this?" Su Bai looked at Director Lu. "Oh. This is Xiaoqing, who was transferred to the Special Crime Working Group last month. She has curly hair and looks pretty," Director Lu reminded. Su Bai called her assistant Lingling. She didn't like to get close to people, so the assistant she had the most contact with around her was the AI senior work assistant type simulated person customized by Mingfei. In addition to being proficient in handling all office software, information retrieval and data analysis, Lingling also easily mastered the basic information and personal preferences of Su Bai and all colleagues in the workgroup. This type of simulator is found in Su Bai Shi or many companies. Unlike companion-type simulators, work-type simulators are mostly intermediate and junior-level simulators, mainly distributed in assistant, service, and security positions, and rarely customized to reach advanced level. However, work-related simulators use AI projectors, which mostly perform relatively simple and repetitive tasks. The projectors give them a free range of motion and a visual appearance for everyone. The dozen or so members of the Special Crime Working Group are divided into 3 shifts, with only Su Bai almost always present, while the others work in 3 shifts in the morning, middle, and evening. Therefore, the newly joined Xiaoqing has little impression of Su Bai here. Zhaozuiyuan.com. After learning from Lingling that Qing was on tomorrow's evening shift, Su Bai gave Cheng Ziqiu his contact information and address, and prepared to return to work without any intention of continuing to participate. Dr. Su. Cheng Ziqiu stopped Su Bai as she walked out of the medical record office. Who proposed Wei Xiaoqing's transfer to the Special Crime Working Group? I need to ask the HR department about this. I see that Captain Cheng and Mr. Xing have had a pleasant communication, and I believe they will fully cooperate with your work. Su Bai and Cheng Ziqiu have frequent contact in their work. If we don't consider the frequent academic debates between the two, Cheng Ziqiu will directly communicate with Qinglan when they have a disagreement. In addition to receiving countless confrontational verbal exchanges, the cooperation is basically smooth. Dr. Su is the head of the Special Crime Working Group. How could he let someone he doesn't understand work around him? Cheng Ziqiu seemed to never care about Su Bai's attitude, and he deliberately emphasized his tone on, how could it be? Recently, the working group has been understaffed, and there have been 2 or 3 new members coming over. I haven't seen her a few times, so I don't understand. Su Bai's gaze flickered. It was so simple that there were obvious problematic cases, Jean Lingshan, whom the entire Su Bai family didn't want to mention, and Wei Xiaoqing, who didn't know how to transfer to her side. So, what is the relationship between Su Tingting's death and the Su Bai family? Just now, Mr. Xing said on the phone that Dr. Jean resigned 3 years ago. I remember Dr. Su happened to come 3 years ago. You should know why he didn't do it, right? It has to be said that Cheng Ziqiu always manages to focus on the key points. I don't know. Su Bai looked at Cheng Ziqiu's lightly raised eyebrows. It seemed that he knew everything. The last question, is it possible that Su Tingting's final state was hypnotized? Cheng Ziqiu asked. Cashier and security team. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The clock pointed to 21 o'clock, and Su Bai decided to take a look at the road before Su Tingting's death. She casually put on a baseball cap and went downstairs. There is a white Golf in the underground garage that Qinglan prepared for her. Su Bai's memories of childhood are very vague. Most of the time, she lived alone, eating alone, going to school alone, getting sick alone, and having nightmares alone. The Su Bai family is about half an hour's drive away from Su Tingting's work in the Xian Shiming Industrial Park. Few people drive across the old city area at night. Golf is driving on bumpy streets, and the lights outside the car windows are getting dimmer. Su Bai drove slowly, observing the surrounding environment. She had been in B City for over 3 years. Although she was originally a person with no fixed residence, she had lived a cold and lonely life like this for almost a lifetime. However, in a short period of time, she frequently encountered problems around her, which she had not encountered in a long time. Near 22.00, Su Bai arrived at New World Ming. The entire park looks pitch black. In such a remote location, this technology park that looks like it has at least 10 office buildings is still in operation. Su Bai got off the car, and there was only an electronic railing at the entrance without any security guards. She walked casually through the pedestrian passage and faced 2 office buildings connected in the middle or above. On the first floor, there was a convenience store with lights on. At the entrance of the store was a crooked sign with no name, only a delivery phone number. 100-3044, this reminded Su Bai of the number Su Tingting had frantically dialed before her death. She guessed several possibilities based on the position of her fingers, and 100-3044 happened to be one of them. With a ding-dong sound, Su Bai entered the door and a seemingly unfamiliar little thug poked his head out. His whole body was like a picture of a phone in water, shaking and staring straight at Su Bai, saying, "Welcome." I don't know what attitude the shop owner has towards customizing the cashier guy as a little thug in his 20s. What is the situation with AI intermediate work service type simulation people, not to mention whether convenience stores are profitable or not, where even birds don't exist? This convenience store may have other hidden functions. Su Bai, don't look away, linger in front of several rows of shelves. The prices here are outrageously expensive, and although there are not many categories, the only products available are canned goods, beer, fast food, and daily necessities. After looking at it slowly for 2 minutes, she realized that no one would buy anything here except fools. Pretending to wander around a few times, there were probably no other clues left. Su Bai walked towards the cashier and met her gloomy eyes. Where can they all be delivered? Su Bai glanced at the counter, and the AI image of the cashier was indeed a popular outfit among little thugs nowadays, with a bright red tight-hurdle vest paired with flared jeans and dirty shoes. Within 3 kilometers, the cashier's voice was deep and pleasant. Su Bai smiled as if nothing had happened. Is there anyone nearby 3 kilometers? And who will deliver the goods? I haven't heard that AI simulators can move up to 3 kilometers. She paused for a moment and continued, do you have a phone card? The cashier drifted to the corner of the counter, indicating that the colorful card was there. Can I buy without an ID card? Su Bai knew that her expression had no effect on the cashier's answer, so she smiled and expressed friendliness. As expected, the answer is no way. Su Bai always believed that the phone number that was not connected was a clue, but in the case materials sent by the police station, Su Tingting's call record for that day was blank, so she suspected that there was another phone number. It is easy to have one now, but it is difficult to have a phone number code that does not need to be bound to an ID card. Stepping out of the convenience store, Su Bai originally wanted to take a look at the office buildings on both sides. As soon as he walked into the revolving door, 2 AI junior work-type simulators with security appearances walked over. Although they could easily pass through their bodies and enter, these simple and camera-like simulators were placed here, inevitably connected to a security system center. Su Bai took a few more glances while walking outside, and found that the elevators inside the office building were operating normally. There were also emergency lights in the corridors, and even lighting in the stairwells. This remote park, an empty office building with few people, has an interior environment even more luxurious than the Su Bai Shi. Quickly walking back into the car, it happened to be 22.23, about the same time as the day Su Tingting was murdered. Golf turned left along the main gate, and 2 or 3 minutes later, Su Bai stopped at the roadside. To the left was a city village, with a pale, New East 5 Villages sign hanging on the ancient entrance. Below was a rusty iron door, which was rebuilt after the end of the world. On the right side are separated fields filled with grains, vegetables, fruits, and other crops. Every 2 or 3 fields, there are 2 AI junior work simulators who look like villagers patrolling. They look very strong, with wide shoulders, mostly wearing dark short-sleeved vests, khaki or dark green work pants, with different facial features that exude ferocity. They should be the AI simulation security team of Shindong 5 Villages on the left, in order to prevent criminals with mental abnormalities from causing trouble outside. Looking down at the golf headlights, there were about 10 figures floating around with pale faces, all staring straight at this side. Su Bai felt like she was in a ghost realm at this moment, and couldn't believe there was such an exciting place in B City. This dilapidated and remote village has customized around 10 AI simulated human security guards. It seems that the New East 5 Villages probably used the same AI simulated human designer as the New Ximing just now, which has aroused strong interest from Su Bai. She guessed that the cashier was designed as a little thug because he didn't want strangers to approach him. Similarly, the security guards looked fierce, but why didn't they have the same appearance as the 2 security guards in the office building, each with a different, fierce appearance? Su Bai pondered for a while by the car, ready to take a risk and take a look at the New East 5 Villages. Unexpectedly, she walked 3 steps, 5 steps, 7 or 8 steps towards the big iron gate at the village entrance. There was no response from the 10 or so security teams, and she still drifted around in the fields fiercely. They only react when they see patients with mental disorders. Su Bai thought about reaching out his hand and pushing the iron door. With a creak, the door opened, revealing a village immersed in moonlight. On both sides are small courtyards adjacent to each other. Some walls are missing a corner, while others have only one gate left. Looking down a dirt road that runs through the entire village, only 3 or 4 courtyards have lanterns hanging in front of them. Su Bai felt like she had entered a secret realm, as if she was not in the same world as the outside world. Old Village Chief. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Su Bai walked about 10 meters in the darkness and felt a pair of eyes watching her beside her. Suddenly turning around, I noticed a skinny man standing not far away, trembling and asking, "Little girl, who are you?" Su Bai took a few seconds to confirm that the man in front of her was a normal person, but she didn't know how to communicate anymore. "Are you a villager living here?" "No. I'm the village chief." The man clearly relaxed his guard. "What are you doing here, little girl, in the middle of the night?" "Village chief. I am a reporter from B News. I saw that the field planning outside your village is quite good, and I want to come in and ask about it, and promote it to other villages as well." Su Bai walked 2 steps towards the village chief. He was in his 40s and 50s, although his face had many wrinkles, he was handsome, his hair was half gray, and his back was hunched. He wore a white shirt on his upper body and dark pants below, so he couldn't see clearly. "Little girl, what's your name?" The village chief suddenly straightened his waist, as if something flashed through his eyes. "Cheng Ziqiu." Su Bai stared at the village chief's eyes and slowly took a step back, subconsciously saying a name. "The courtyard next to me is my home, can you come in and sit down?" The village chief resumed his bold and weak posture and warmly greeted him. "It's too late today, I'll leave first, another day." Su Bai retreated to the side of the big iron gate in 3 or 2 steps. She didn't mistake the village chief's gaze just now, it was excitement, the excitement when she saw the prey. The village chief didn't move or speak again, just stood there with a smile, wrinkles on his face like blooming chrysanthemums. Su Bai ran across the road from the big iron gate, and the 10 or so security guards gathered around the gulf, like a row of string puppets, motionless. Fortunately, the AI simulator did not have any physical presence, and Su Bai was someone who had seen a big scene before. She quickly got on the car smoothly and kicked the accelerator to rush out. Has Su Tingting encountered these security teams? Why didn't Kim 003 record such a bizarre plot? After following Su Tingting's route for a while, Su Bai saw the number 15 bus with almost no one on board. In fact, during this time, it is unlikely that most people are still outside. "There aren't that many people on the bus," Su Bai muttered to herself, thinking of the little boy. It seemed that no matter how Kim 003 shouted, Su Tingting never answered. Looking further ahead, the surrounding environment became increasingly desolate, and one could vaguely see a dam not far away, which should be the place where Su Tingting drowned. Su Bai turned on her flashlight and walked along the riverbank before realizing that the river was not deep, at most up to her thighs. Su Bai remembered that Su Tingting was planning to turn left and go home when she encountered the intersection of the number 15 bus. So, she drove back to the intersection she had just passed by and drove about 500 meters, only to see the gate of Yulan Garden. This community is built right at the boundary between bustling and desolate areas. Looking from the entrance towards the direction where Su Tingting drowned, it looks like a lonely city in the wilderness. Looking in the opposite direction, there is a bus stop not far from the community, with several small vendors scattered around. The slowly rising smoke and fire atmosphere is particularly warm under the street lights. Walking to the entrance of the community, the lights flickered and it was a bit chilly. Walking along the dimly lit path, I saw a small garden and a tall building. The environment is really good, Su Bai muttered as she walked into the small garden and saw a man gently shaking on the swing. From Su Bai's position, she only saw a pair of bright eyes, like stars in the sky. What pure eyes! Su Bai just glanced and continued to walk out of the small garden along the corridor. Facing you is an apartment-style residential building, with a uniformed security guard standing next to the access control. It is indeed a high-end community, and the security guards are all real people. Su Bai walked over and asked him about Su Tingting's situation. "Who are you from, Miss Su?" the security guard asked cautiously. "I am a psychologist for the Su Bai family." Su Bai took out his ID card and looked at the security guard's reaction. He clearly knew that Su Tingting's mental state was abnormal, so he continued, "Miss Su has lived in the Su Bai family hospital before, and I am sorry to hear that she had an accident. I want to see if there is anyone who can help." The security guard is a kind-hearted young man who sighed and said, "Miss Su is very kind, but I can't open the door for you. She doesn't have anyone else at home either." Su Bai turned around and walked back to the small garden, calling Cheng Ziqiu. "Captain Cheng, I'm downstairs from Su Tingting. Can you ask the security guard to open the door for me? I want to see." Before she could finish speaking, she heard Cheng Ziqiu say, "Wait for me," and then hung up the phone. Inexplicably looking at her phone, Su Bai felt that Dao's gaze was fixed on her. This feeling was different from the New East 5 villages, just now, but after looking around for a while, there was no one there. After 2 or 3 minutes, Cheng Ziqiu and Officer Xiaopan quickly walked over to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Officer Xiaopan explained, "We didn't find Wei Xiaoqing, we were just about to come and see the scene again." Su Bai nodded and followed the two people into the apartment building. There were not only surveillance cameras on this side, but also a large number. There were 2 cameras facing in different directions at the entrance of the hallway, elevator, and each floor. "Next time you want to see the scene, please contact me first." Cheng Ziqiu felt that it was too dangerous for a woman to come over in this situation. What Su Bai heard was unfriendly and criticism. She entered the gate of 1205 behind Officer Xiaopan, ignoring Cheng Ziqiu. Su Tingting's home is warm and full of art, with a 2-bedroom, 1 living room layout. The living room has a large bay window, and the kitchen is open. The dining table is also filled with broken fruits and unfinished plates. Entering the kitchen area, there were uncleaned cookware on the stove and a few items in the sink. Opening the refrigerator, a smell rushed out. The small room closer to the kitchen was decorated as a study, with a whole-wall bookshelf and a fabric sofa inside. Su Bai approached the bookshelf and carefully looked for a while, only to find that each book was arranged by category and author name. This massive project is only done by OCD, right? After leaving the study and entering the bedroom through the living room, the gray curtains and light blue sheets made the room look cooler. Su Bai walked to the dressing table, where all the skincare products, cosmetics, and jewelry were neatly arranged. Strange. Su Bai casually picked up the multifunctional socket, and the 2 wires on it were clearly used to charge phones and laptops. What's strange? Cheng Ziqiu walked in. After watching the daily videos of Kim 003 this morning, he felt something was wrong, but couldn't tell where it was, so he came over at this moment. Strange things. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Kim 003's AI glasses and headphones are damaged, was the projector found at home. Su Bai looked at Cheng Ziqiu. If customizing the projector is to always see Kim 003's appearance, then with the power consumption of the AI projector, why didn't you see a dedicated charging socket? I found it at home, Cheng Ziqiu paused and said, but I couldn't find the charger before. Later, I contacted Mingfei and it was equipped separately. Does Su Tingting have no relatives? Everything related to Kim 003 is strange, and I don't know where it is strange. However, after on-site visits to the New Shiming Park and the New East 5 villages, Su Bai felt that Su Tingting was also strange and didn't give in too much. No, she is an orphan who grew up in B City with severe mental disorder withdrawal, said Cheng Ziqiu. B City Severe Mental Disorder Abstinence Center. Su Bai's mind rang with a ding sound, and there was another place related to Su Bai's. The Severe Mental Disorder Withdrawal Center will not randomly accept orphans with normal mental state, will it? Cheng Ziqiu accurately grasped another key point. Does it mean that Su Tingting was mentally abnormal from birth? Officer Xiao Pan approached and asked. Not necessarily, it's very likely that there's an issue with Su Tingting's background. Su Bai frowned. Do you know when Su Tingting was in the rehabilitation center? The identity information shows from birth to before entering high school. Cheng Ziqiu took out her phone, but didn't look at it. She said calmly, then she went to college in S City and happened to return to B City 3 years ago. Su Bai understood the exact meaning, but did not argue as before. The reason why Su Tingting's case has not progressed is because Kim 003 clearly records the SUV driver, and even the entire incident video, which may only be a small part real. So, what exactly happened on August 17th? If we set aside all the related Kim 003 and investigate again, we will find that Su Tingting is a mystery, and all the clues related to her are also mysteries. Su Bai walked around the room again, and all the details showed that there were two people with different lifestyles living together here, while Kim 003 had no physical presence. So who was the other person? Captain Cheng, how about we play a game? Su Bai smiled at Cheng Ziqiu and even mischievously blinked her eyes. Cough. Cheng Ziqiu clearly couldn't adapt to this friendly attitude. What? Games. From now on, let's assume that you and I are both Su Tingting. You are Su Tingting, who is calm, planned, and slightly obsessive-compulsive. I am Su Tingting, who lives casually, sensitive, and neurotic. We both live in this house at the same time, identifying our own areas and things we come into contact with. Su Bai cunningly walked quickly to the bedside, looked at the distance between the bed and the bay window, gave up the side by the window, and lay down on the other side, closing her eyes. Cheng Ziqiu was stunned for 2 seconds, then lay down on the side that was separated from Su Bai. He closed his eyes and focused for a moment, then opened them again, as if a ray of sunlight was shining brightly on his face. He pretended to lift the blanket and stood up, emptying the window for 3 seconds. He walked straight through the bedroom and into the bathroom, opening the small cabinet on the sink. The toothbrush and mouthwash cup were the same color, the soap box had no water stains, and the bottles of body lotion and shampoo were covered with a circle of white tape. Cheng Ziqiu gestured with her hand before understanding that this was designed to avoid slipping hands after taking a shower. After leaving the bathroom, Cheng Ziqiu hesitated and walked into the study. She sat down on the small sofa, and on the nearby coffee table was a book with a note, Memoirs of S City. He opened the book and told the story of a couple in S City who were forced to separate due to the arrival of the end of the world 50 years ago. The girl spent the following decades reminiscing about their sweet romance. The book should have been read many times, and the edges have been pasted with transparent tape page by page, while the bookmark is a photo that has been cut by a quarter. Cheng Ziqiu picked up the photo and saw Su Bai humming and getting up. He walked 3 or 2 steps to the refrigerator, opened the door and searched for a while, picked up a bunch of food such as milk, ham, and eggs, took a few steps, placed them all over the stove, and then turned on the faucet to run around. After a while of busy work, he picked up a plate and walked to the dining table. He sat on the chair, closed his eyes and meditated for 2 seconds, then without hesitation, lay on the ground and moved the chair. Under one of the legs of the chair, he found a perfectly hidden phone card chip. Su Bai almost immediately found out that this phone card is 1003044. What did you find? Cheng Ziqiu's voice came over. The missed phone card. Su Bai got up from the ground with a hint of pride in her tone. What did you find? Bookmark. Cheng Ziqiu handed the bookmark over and exchanged it with the phone card. And Su Bai took the bookmark and carefully looked at it. It was the far left quarter of a photo, and it could be vaguely seen that it was in an indoor space with bookshelves and desks. The background light was like morning or dusk. What do you have in mind? Su Bai observed the front and back of the bookmark again and looked up to ask Cheng Ziqiu. It's strange that if two regions with different personality habits are completely different, how should Su Tingting live every day? Cheng Ziqiu began to think about this question from the bathroom. Zhaoshuyuan.com, well, patients with multiple personalities usually don't know they have another personality, but the decorations in Su Tingting's home are too obvious, and as the owner, it's impossible to ignore these. Su Bai was also caught up in this question. Su Tingting's daily videos feel quite natural, but those from Kim 003. Cheng Ziqiu became increasingly confused. What if there's actually no Kim 003 in those videos? Su Bai's eyes widened a bit, as if there was something to say. Are you saying that Su Tingting mistook her other self for Kim 003? Cheng Ziqiu was surprised. He has also been exposed to many cases of patients with mental disorders and has some understanding of many serious mental illnesses. Mental patients with multiple personalities will not constantly switch between two personalities at the same time. Su Bai didn't figure it out before because of this issue. It's impossible for Su Tingting's multiple personalities to appear at the same time, but what if she doesn't have dissociative identity disorder? Su Tingting's dissociative identity disorder was diagnosed by Dr. Jean, and there is no complete case or consultation record to support it. We have a preconceived belief that the illusions Su Tingting saw were also due to this. Therefore, the video recorded by Kim 003 cannot explain it. What if the incident video and daily storage are all eye masks? But why do people who use eye masks have to go around such a big circle? Su Bai has now regained the responsibility and competence of being the chief psychologist of the Su Bai family. What exactly is Su Tingting's illness? Officer Pan didn't know how long he had been holding it in the corner. Now, hearing this, his blood was boiling, and he raised his arm like a primary school student asking a question. I guess. Su Bai suddenly stepped forward and patted Cheng Ziqiu's shoulder. I guess Su Tingting is not sick. Dr. Liu, who is known for his intelligence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. No illness. Officer Pan shouted, how could it be? Su Tingting's behavior is not a dissociative identity disorder, nor is it like delusions. I am only speculating that she has been hypnotized. Su Bai saw Cheng Ziqiu across from her, with a look of, I went to another world, on her face. Captain Cheng. Cheng Ziqiu slowed down before pulling his thoughts back. Although there were still many things he couldn't figure out, his intuition was that Su Bai was right. At this moment, Officer Xiao Pan also wanted to pat the captain's shoulder, but he didn't dare. The captain's body was not allowed to be touched by anyone. Except for Su Bai's moment earlier, no one in the entire police station would have any physical contact with Captain Cold-Faced Cheng. Cheng Ziqiu looked at her watch and it was almost midnight. She sent Su Bai home first, preparing to continue the analysis the next day. After personally delivering Su Bai downstairs, Cheng Ziqiu left Xiao Pan at the entrance of the police station and swept away. Recently, both he and Xiao Pan have been living in the police station, and Su Tingting has not returned home since her case. The SUV whizzed through the deserted streets for about half an hour before stopping in front of a two-story small building near the suburbs. This was not Cheng Ziqiu's daily residence, but his childhood home. Unfortunately, now only the cold room and painful memories of the past are welcoming him. Cheng Ziqiu entered the door, and the living room was not darkened by the entire floor-to-ceiling glass windows, making the room even more spacious and desolate. The stairs were arranged in a three-story layout, with a bedroom and study above and a basement below. Standing at the corner of the stairs, Cheng Ziqiu hesitated for a moment and walked down. After touching the light switch on the wall, the brightness was a bit dazzling in an instant. There were about 50 or 60 square meters here, except for the tightly closed large door in the corner. There were many old furniture piled up in the remaining space. Sitting on the dusty ground for an unknown amount of time, Cheng Ziqiu's mind remained blank. Another night of nightmares, long and bloody dreams. Su Bai saw a little girl who looked 7 or 8 years old, somewhat similar to herself. Struggling to get up from bed, Su Bai saw Cheng Zichio's car in the same position yesterday. However, today there was only him in the car. Officer Cheng. Su Bai looked at Cheng Zichio's dark circles under his eyes and couldn't quite understand why he appeared here early in the morning. There are still some things that I haven't figured out. Cheng Zichio came down and opened the car door for Su Bai. I have made an appointment with Dr. Lu from Mingfei, will you come with me? Su Bai got on the car, and Kim 003 should indeed be a crucial part of this case. Although I'm not quite sure about the level of AI simulation technology, they probably don't have their own thinking, do they? Cheng Zichio occasionally turned her head to look at Su Bai as she drove, squinting her eyes in the passenger seat. Not long after, Su Bai suddenly opened her eyes and saw Cheng Zichio wearing a coat, as well as several people walking around and pointing outside the car. Cheng Zichio parked the car directly at the entrance of Su Bai's house, while he was leisurely standing next to the car chatting with a man. The sound of the car door caught the attention of 2 men. Cheng Zichio smiled at her first and introduced, "This is Dr. Lu, an engineer at the Technology Center of Mingfei AI Simulator Business Unit. This is Dr. Su from the Su Bai family." Su Bai naturally had heard of Dr. Lu for a long time. He was hired by Mingfei from other cities to specialize in the research and development of AI simulation technology, and he is also a pioneering figure in the global AI technology field. Dr. Su, I've been looking up to him for a long time. Mr. Xing and I have had a few encounters before. Dr. Lu warmly shook hands with Su Bai and continued the previous topic. Our team reviewed his behavior trajectory after recycling Kim 003, and he followed the standard procedure. Su Bai didn't speak, just stood silently on the side. She saw a familiar expression on Dr. Lu's face, her chin slightly leaning forward, and this Dr. Lu was provoking. The gossip about Su Bai and Cheng Zichio going to work together again this morning has spread throughout the Su Bai family. This version shows the 2 of them sleeping directly in the car yesterday. Who do you think Kim 003 is being controlled by? Cheng Zichio was sitting in Su Bai's office at the moment, lucky enough to drink the coffee brewed by Dr. Su himself. Su Bai completely ignored Cheng Zichio's question and remained immersed in Dr. Lu's expression. Cheng Zichio didn't urge him. He walked around the office, which was about 10 square meters. Apart from bookshelves and desks, there was only a 2-seater sofa, which seemed a bit spacious. If Kim 003 is not an AI humanoid, but a real man, what do you think? Su Bai slumped on the sofa. And Cheng Zichio's attention was focused on the few photos on the bookshelf, all of which were landscapes without portraits. Who would put a few landscape photos without anyone in the office? He turned around and thought for a few seconds, but couldn't understand what Su Bai meant. Are you saying Kim 003 is not an AI humanoid? If Su Tingting is hypnotized, who can come into contact with her every day and use AI to simulate glasses to create eye-blocking methods? Su Bai also knew that her current thoughts were imaginative, but last night she thought of countless possibilities, none of which could reproduce the entire process. The security system of Mingfei Company is the highest level, and it's difficult to control Kim 003 unless. Cheng Zichio didn't continue, and his eyes exchanged silently with Su Bai, both of whom understood each other's meaning. Dr. Lu's expression just now reappeared in Su Bai's mind, and she changed the topic. By the way, has the convenience store in the park been investigated before? Today, Xiaopan went to investigate, Cheng Zichio said. I received additional environmental photos last night that showed this convenience store, so I asked Xiaopan to ask the staff there if there were any clues. Su Bai shared the phone number that Su Tingting repeatedly dialed before her death with the phone number that was delivered to the convenience store. After thinking about it, she still didn't mention those security teams or the old village chief, as there was no direct connection to the case. Su Bai. Cheng Ziqiu thought of the New World Ming Park at night and wanted to give a few words of advice, but hesitated to speak. What? Su Bai was still considering whether Su Tingting had a dissociative identity disorder since childhood, and was later cured, or did she never have it from beginning to end. 95% of the cases we have encountered in the past are incurable, and even if we can live a normal life, we still need long-term treatment. Cheng Ziqiu closed her eyes and leaned against the sofa to ponder. Could Dr. Liu, as an academic authority, have a problem? Ming Fei won't be the same as Su Bai Shi 3 years ago, will it? He didn't open his eyes and slowly read, Qinglan Mountain. And Su Bai, who was also leaning on the other side of the sofa, suddenly opened her eyes wide and called out, Kim 003. She's also dead. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Cheng Ziqiu jumped up and took out the phone, leaving with a gust of wind. Su Bai suppressed the doubts in her heart. It should be the work of the police station in the future, but should Qinglan be notified? Perhaps some truth should have emerged. She watched all the videos of Kim 003 again, and if all the Kim 003 in the screen were not AI Sim Kim 003, but someone Su Tingting saw after being hypnotized, would it be Jean Lingshan? Are Su Tingting and Jean Lingshan companions? Su Bai looked up and realized that many of her colleagues had finished work, with only a few offices of the Special Crime Working Group still brightly lit. Lingling. As Su Bai's assistant, the AI Senior Work Assistant type simulator Lingling has her own workstation and can freely move within an office area of 50 square meters. Have you contacted Wei Xiaoqing? Xiao Su, I made 20 phone calls and answered 0 times. Su Bai had very ordinary requirements for Lingling's appearance, only choosing regular female skin. However, she inputted and debugged common psychological terms and idioms for several days. Xiao Su and Lingling were also designed for convenience in addressing each other. I'll call her. Su Bai took out her phone and called twice, but still no one answered. Miss Su. Lingling turned to Su Bai, 22 times, 0 times connected. Check the location of her phone. Su Bai's unease surged again. Due to the frequent contact of psychologists with the most dangerous mentally ill patients in the post-apocalyptic world, Su Bai tied a location to every employee's phone 6 months ago, and could report any danger directly to the police. Lingling opened the system database and copied Wei Xiaoqing's information. A few seconds later, she said, Miss Su, it's in the underground garage. Su Bai frowned. Knowing that Wei Xiaoqing was related to the Su Tingting case, she reviewed all of Wei Xiaoqing's work records in the Su Bai family and found that the girl had taken more than a year of sick leave shortly after Jean Lingshan left 3 years ago. After returning to work, she applied for transfer to the Special Crime Case Working Group. What's even more strange is that Wei Xiaoqing's transfer application was directly approved by the Su Bai family headquarters, which is Qinglan's territory. Miss Su, do you need me to contact anyone else? Lingling lowered her voice and said, Brother Wang and Director Liu mentioned basement gossip 24 times last week. Su Bai shook her head. She also heard that a girl working in Mingfei in the same park suddenly died in an underground garage last month, and various supernatural legends have been circulating ever since. Lingling, please shut down the system for me. Su Bai returned to the office, picked up her backpack, and walked towards the stairwell. Not being influenced by supernatural legends is because since the establishment of the Special Crime Working Group, the number of cases has been increasing day by day, and no matter how bizarre the case may be, it is far more thrilling than supernatural stories. Continuing down the stairs, starting from the 6th floor, the following floors are the outpatient and inpatient areas of the psychological clinic. During this time, few people have moved around, and the ceiling lights in the hallway have been broken for a long time. The walls have also fallen off a lot, as if a horror movie will be staged at any time. Su Bai has been suffering from claustrophobia since childhood, and she basically doesn't know how to take the elevator. She also takes the stairs to and from work every day, so she has long been indifferent to the atmosphere here. 2 or 3 minutes later, she arrived at the basement level, which was the garage of the entire park, but it was mostly vehicles from Ming Fei and Su Baishe. She had already finished work, and the empty parking lot exuded a chilly atmosphere. Su Bai turned on her flashlight and wanted to look around to see if there was Wei Xiaoqing's phone or chip. Just as she had walked a distance of more than 10 cars, she felt a sudden mist floating not far away, covering her with darkness and moving towards this direction. The scene of the little boy in the Su Tingting case appeared in Su Bai's mind. Is there anything else happening after the heavy fog? She was thinking, ding ding ding, a piercing phone call. The number displayed was Qinglan, the big boss of the Su Bai family. That cold and delicate man, in his 40s, not only has the largest psychological clinic in the country, but also has close relationships with many political and business executives in cities. He is also Su Bai's adoptive father. I'm at the front door. Qinglan's words had no hint of bargaining power. Su Bai didn't hesitate at all when he hung up the phone, so he turned back and walked upstairs. Qinglan's matter must be given priority. Entering the first-floor lobby, the lights lit up. The top lights near the front door and the huge Su Bai sign were both 24-hour, shining like daylight. Su Bai blinked uncomfortably and saw a valuable antique car where Cheng Ziqiu had parked before. This pure white and spacious Jeep had been discontinued more than 100 years ago, and there were only a few people who could drive it to show off in B City. The weather in August has become sultry. The weather after the end of the world is extreme. Heavy rainstorm or strong wind comes in a flash, and the temperature difference is less obvious. The global warming continues. Even in winter, it is about 20 degrees. Su Bai walked quickly out of the front door, sweating from her forehead. Just a few steps away from the car, she suddenly felt a gust of wind blowing into her neck. Subconsciously stopping to touch my neck, I heard a loud noise accompanied by splashing glass fragments, as if someone had said a short sentence that I didn't hear clearly. Glass shards like flying knives flew in an instant, leaving a long and short row of blood marks on Su Bai's arm. Her cheeks were not spared, and in an instant, blood splattered all over her clothes and arms, which was shocking. 2 seconds later, a strong feeling swept over Su Bai, and the long-awaited premonition suggested that she should not look. After struggling for a few seconds, she slowly lifted her head and saw a pair of eyes filled with fear and shock staring at her. Although her face has visibly deformed and her body lying on the cover of the antique car's front machine has also twisted, her limbs are intertwined at a strange angle, and it can still be seen that she is a beautiful woman. She has chestnut wavy curly hair, her eyes staring exaggerated, her nose noticeably sunken, her mouth slightly open, and her exposed teeth stained blood red. Taking a few steps back, Su Bai wanted to avoid Wei Xiaoqing's gaze, but whether moving left or right, when she looked up again, her eyes were facing each other. She landed right above the driver's cabin, with the entire windshield deeply sunken, and bright red blood trickling down the white body of the car. Don't look. A cold hand reached out from behind, covering Su Bai's eyes. It was Qinglan, who had just finished the phone call. There was a magic in his voice, and Su Bai's brain began to rethink, so Wei Xiaoqing also died. Big Boss Qinglan. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Su Bai sat in the inquiry room of the police station for the first time, with a face covered in blood stains and a sharp contrast with Qinglan, who was dressed brightly next to her. The man repeatedly wiped a small blood spot on his coat with a tissue. If it weren't for this action, it would be difficult to detect anything wrong with him. It seems that when the incident occurred, he should still be some distance away from the scene. The door was forcefully pushed open, and Cheng Ziqiu and Officer Xiao Pan walked in. Su Bai's corner of the eye twitched. Was there no one else at the police station? Cheng Ziqiu's gaze lingered on Su Bai's face and arms for a moment, and then turned to Qinglan. This was the first time he had seen the big boss of the Su Bai family himself. Qinglan is over 190 centimeters tall, not too strong or thin. He is even more handsome than the legendary figure, and his well-cut white suit is not something that ordinary people can handle. Wearing it on him is full of the taste of a graceful and noble young master. Mr. Xing, Dr. Su, as usual, we need to ask a few questions to the two of you. Cheng Ziqiu went straight to the topic. Originally, his subordinates were searching for several clues separately, but in the end, they found that they were all interrupted by the Su Bai family. He is usually responsible for the coordination of the work group, and the progress of Lingshan's follow-up has not been smooth today. After leaving the Su Bai family, Lingshan has not appeared in public, and his permanent address has been vacant for a long time. Except for a few automatic deduction records, the bank account is completely blank. Thinking that Wei Xiaoqing had just received a notice to rush to the scene and was still in front of the big boss and chief psychologist of the Su Bai family, Cheng Ziqiu's heart was in turmoil, and Wei Xiaoqing's clues were completely interrupted. He opened the folder at hand and looked up at the two people across from him. He asked calmly, "Is the white BWM Jeep of B8*** owned and driven by Mr. Xing?" "Yes," Qinglan said concisely. According to surveillance footage, this white BWM Jeep with license plate B8** entered from the south gate of the park at 19.21 today and stopped outside the front door of the Su Bai building at 19.25 until an accident occurred at 19.40. "May I ask Mr. Xing, was it you who was driving this car at that time?" Cheng Ziqiu pushed two surveillance photos over. "It's me," Qinglan said slowly, casually looking at Cheng Ziqiu. "At the time of the incident, Mr. Xing was not in the car. Where did you get off and go?" Cheng Ziqiu narrowed her eyes with an indescribable emotion in her eyes. "Let's go." Qinglan's tone sounded casual and arrogant. "So why did Mr. Xing arrive in B City today?" Cheng Ziqiu continued to ask. "It's inconvenient to say." Qinglan's tone was ambiguous, and she even blinked at Cheng Ziqiu. Su Bai immediately felt the gossip emanating from Officer Pan's eyes, and the atmosphere immediately heated up. "Dr. Su." Cheng Ziqiu cleared her throat and turned to Su Bai. "When did you receive Mr. Xing's call? What were you doing at that time?" Su Bai simply took out his phone and placed it on the table. He looked at the call record in a grand manner. "At 19.35, I was in the underground garage, and Mr. Xing said he was at the front door, so I came up." Cheng Ziqiu asked, "What are you doing in the underground garage?" "My assistant checked Wei Xiaoqing's phone location and it showed up in the underground garage, so I went down to take a look." Su Bai's expression management relaxed a lot, and she silently thought to herself, "You asked about this when you rushed to the scene, okay. Who inspected the underground garage and rooftop for an hour, causing her to wait in the police car with a sticky and restless body? Why did I suddenly check Wei Xiaoqing's phone location after work today?" Cheng Ziqiu's tone was serious and calm, as if she had understood all the truth. "Suddenly thought of it." Su Bai lowered her eyes. "The last question." Cheng Ziqiu seemed to unconsciously tap twice on the desktop in front of her. "How did Wei Xiaoqing get to the rooftop?" Qinglan naturally ignored unnecessary questions, and Su Bai was affected by the gaze of two aloof men, feeling uncomfortable all over. She had to grit her head and say, "I don't know." This was also an old question, and during the on-site investigation, Cheng Ziqiu had repeatedly compared Wei Xiaoqing's course of action. Assuming Wei Xiaoqing takes the elevator to the 10th floor, apart from the permission to swipe cards on each floor, the monitoring in the elevator is also recorded 24 hours a day, obviously not recording her. If you take the stairs, in order to ensure the safety of the patient and prevent anyone from freely entering and exiting the Su Bai family, the safety door between the 6th and 7th floors is locked, and the door of the rooftop is also locked. It is impossible for ordinary people to obtain the key. When Cheng Ziqiu went up, The two door locks on the 7th floor and rooftop were intact and there were no signs of being pried. Cheng Ziqiu stood up and signaled that today's inquiry was over. Officer Xiao Pan came over to ask Qinglan and Su Bai to sign the inquiry record, and then prepared to send the two people out. How many days will Mr. Xing stay in B City this time? Cheng Ziqiu chased after him at the entrance of the inquiry room, his expression also becoming more friendly. What? Captain Cheng wants to limit my itinerary. Qinglan took out a handkerchief from his pocket, pinched it in his hand, and casually wiped it, as if it were all bacteria. I hope Mr. Xing can stay in B City to cooperate with us until the investigation of Wei Xiaoqing's case is clear, Cheng Ziqiu said politely, but there was no room for negotiation in her tone. Ha! Qinglan's expression remained unchanged, but she turned her face to Su Bai and said coldly, I remember Director Lu called me for 2 days now. What hasn't been figured out yet? Su Bai knew that Qinglan was angry. In recent years, his temper has become more and more peculiar. He had no choice but to settle the dispute with Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com and said, Su Tingting's case is indeed a bit complicated. Qinglan clearly didn't like this and raised her eyebrows, saying, How did you stay in B City? Go back and pack your things and go back to S City. Su Bai widened her eyes as if she wanted to say something, then swallowed back and whispered, I won't go. Cheng Ziqiu was confused by the conversation between these two people. Legend has it that Qinglan, as a synonym for charm and elegance, is not just as simple as his adoptive father when it comes to Su Bai, who is beautiful and has been raised since childhood. And he also spoke with Qinglan several times on the phone, and every time their opinions were different, Qinglan had no intention of favoring Su Bai. However, Cheng Ziqiu always believed that this was Qinglan's attitude as the big boss of the Su Bai family. Now it seems that the relationship between the two is not as good as rumored. I'll call Xiaozhang now. Qinglan slowly stuffed the handkerchief back into his pocket and began to feel for the phone. Su Bai didn't speak anymore, turned around and walked out to the entrance of the police station. It was only then that she remembered that there was no car, they came by police car. I silently looked at the few scars on my arm. Just now, my emotions were focused and I didn't feel any pain. Now, my whole body is relaxed and a bit hot. Why are you so vulgar now? Qinglan's voice appeared above her head, and Su Bai looked up. This old man is used to speaking so poorly. Aunt Lan, your acting skills have also declined a lot. Su Bai muttered, I'm leaving. But without taking a step, he glanced at Qinglan again. Qinglan's mouth twitched and he didn't speak. He gently waved his hand and then pinched the center of his eyebrows with his finger, wearing the latest 24K sparkling gold ring, almost blinding Su Bai's eyes. Su Bailey turned around and walked into the dark street, submerged in the darkness.